What is up, everyone? Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 5 of Every Day is Draft Day. I am your host, Dan Turner. Joining me today, two very special guests, very good friends of mine. We have Dave and Seth from IBT Media. What is up, guys?
Hey, Dan. Good to see you, man. Thanks for having us on the show.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you guys on. So, how you guys doing? Football season just started. How'd your teams do? How'd your fantasy teams do?
We're gonna start like that, huh? Well,
Yeah.
I didn't
Let's
go
get the tough questions out of the way
this week, so definitely lost in more than half of them. But it's a really weird week to start.
It was. We're gonna talk about that. What about you, Seth?
Dan, it was good, man. A lot of hits, a lot of misses, though. I mean, who could have predicted some of the things we saw, like some early Sunday scratches? That was pretty head-boggling there on Sunday morning. But overall, man, I was just so thankful to be back on the couch in the driver's seat watching football, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like that myself, especially since my team was the only one in my division to win last week, so I was pretty happy about that. So speaking of hits or misses, that's a great segue, Seth. What are some of your hits that you had this week, guys? We'll start with you, Seth.
Yeah, so Dan and I, Dave and I, a couple months ago, we put out a draft guide. Part of our in-between media draft guide was our all-in picks. And two of my all-in picks, while it's still only week one, I was all in really early on the season on guys like TJ Hawkinson. Loved the volume there, loved the talent. And David Montgomery was a screaming value all off season, and he looks like he is just who I thought he was. So very thankful to have hit those guys. In particularly for week one, last week on our podcast, we did an In the Scope segment. I was talking about guys who were going undrafted in a lot of places who you should pick up before week one because they're going to be the top waiver ads of week two. I talked about guys like Sterling Shepard, who finished the week as a wide receiver one, as well as Kirk Cousins, who was QB 12 in week one as well. Hit on a couple other guys like Tyson Williams and Robbie Anderson, but overall, those were probably the ones I was most excited about.
What about you, Dave?
Well, I had a few hits. Mostly Jameis Winston was a big hit for me. I was recommending people draft him, and he jumped right out there and quarterback 4, I think, for the week. And from the same draft guide that Seth was just talking about, one of my all-ins was Dak Prescott, who showed out. And then my sleeper pick was Jared Goff. And I felt pretty good about that. That started off pretty good. I felt like he was just, going so late. He couldn't, you're not taking any risk drafting a guy that late, just pluck him up with your last pick. His situation is pretty good, and a lot of it is because of TJ Hawkinson, and the volume there that Seth was speaking of was definitely on display in week one. So
yeah, absolutely. As someone who was feeding Goff pretty hard, I was really surprised that he ended up doing as well as he did. So that was a really good call by you, especially at his price point where it was basically free, like you mentioned. No one really wanted any part of him, and he ended up being a quality start in any format for this week. Going over some of mine, I got Matthew Stafford. I think that I was big on Stafford. All off season, I thought that he was going to do really well in the Rams system, and ended up, he ended up proving me right so far. It was a solid start. He targeted all of his receivers. So I think that with the running game doing decent, I think he's in line for a lot of passing attempts this year. So I think he'll do good. Another one that I personally and it's a little bit of a homer pick, is Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, you were there, man. All off season in the chats. I remember every podcast we had. It's a Hurts season, baby.
Yep, every single one. People probably got really annoyed with me saying that in every podcast in their comment section. But I think that it was really annoying to see everyone with a 52% completion percentage from last year, when basically the entire Eagles team was a big dumpster fire, and the coach and everyone had pretty much given up on the season. So the fact that he came out and he got 77%, and Nick Sirianni was able to tailor the offense around what he was good at, gives me a lot of hope. I don't think we're going to go to the Super Bowl or anything this year, but from a fantasy perspective, he's going to do really well in that case. Another one that people didn't really like was Brenda Ayuk. that everyone was really high on him. And he was going like the 5th round of drafts, and I was saying, people were drafting him at his ceiling. He had a great great year last year, and he's super talented. There's no denying that. But a lot of that was because of, the injuries that were happening around his team. And with Trey Lance coming in and, starting at some point, I was worried that he wasn't going to get the work that was needed for him to justify his draft cost. And now we have a report coming in from the coach himself saying that he's not going to, get significant snaps until he can beat out the guys in front of him. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think about? Are you worried about Ayuk going forward, or do you think that's just like a flash in the pan, and then he'll be fine for the rest of the year?
That's a really tough one, Dan. I mean, I think a lot of us, like you said, we were drafting Ayuk probably, at his ceiling rather than the floor, which you never want to do in fantasy football. Week 1 was a little weird for San Francisco as general with the Trey Sermon cut, or the Trey Sermon healthy scratch as well. Definitely, like, we never know what Kyle Shanahan's going to do. He's one of the most hard, unpredictable coaches that we cannot predict in the NFL. But I think with Ayuk moving forward, like, obviously we see the big game out of Deebo Samuel. He was a wide receiver 1 on the week, caught the long touchdown there in the second half. But I mean, I think I'm still rolling out Ayuk if I have him, but I think it's more like, a conservative wide receiver 3 than the wide receiver 2 with upside that we thought he was coming into the season.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Dave? Are you worried at all about Ayuk going forward?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't know how you cannot be at this point. But that's, that reminds me of another hit that I had this week, because I was telling people to draft Deebo Samuel. I couldn't believe the separation between the two in their ADP, So I was really comfortable going up a whole round, on Deebo, and he had a great week. But yeah, Ayuk, the hamstring injury could linger. It's tough to say what's going to happen, but yeah, after Sunday, it makes me a little nervous. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this isn't. I don't expect him to have to like work into the starting rotation like Shanahan is, I think, is saying. But
right,
I didn't expect him, to gain the kind of points that was necessary for his 5th round ADP. But to have him not even start and to have him, have to work into the starting rotation, that is a surprise to me. I didn't think that, with the talent that he has, and he is supremely talented, and don't get me wrong, that he would need to, work to get into the starting lineups. That was a huge surprise.
Especially like even early in the preseason, Dan, we saw Ayuk all over the field making plays. Like, I remember we were in Canton and we saw a 49ers game, and man, Ayuk was everywhere. So yeah, great call on your end, man. I don't have him in a lot of redrafts, but I definitely have been holding him in Dynasty, probably for more value than what he's worth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're not gonna sell him now after that. I mean, he's gonna play eventually. I would have to assume. I don't think he's gonna be on the bench, for Sheffield the entire year. I'd be really shocked if that was the case. So
absolutely.
I at some point I think he does the correct the lineup and start to deliver some return. But to not, I mean, I'd definitely be concerned if I was an owner of his. All right, so moving on, we got some. If there's a hit, that means there has to be a miss. So let's talk about some misses for you guys. Dave, we'll start with you. What kind of misses did you have for week 1?
Well, the misses were there. I was kind of all over Tevin Coleman, at least, getting this opportunity and being kind of a sneaky little start, that he was going to get some run. And he did. He got the ball. He just doesn't look like he has it. Tevin Coleman seriously let me down. That was one of my deeper stabs. But, there were just plenty that I was wrong on. My bust pick in the draft guide was Joe Mixon. And I feel really stupid about that right now after this week, because he certainly made me look like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, he had quite a game. So
yeah, I'm definitely eating that Joe Mixon crow today after all the hate I've been heaping on him all off season. He definitely shut me up pretty well.
Yeah.
What about you, Seth?
Oh man, probably one of the biggest misses for me. And Dave, I know you were on the opposite side of the spectrum here, but it was the entire Dallas Cowboys offense. I did not think – I was worried about Dak Prescott, let's be honest. Like, obviously there's the leg injury from last season, comes into this year, has the shoulder issue, early in camp, and they're talking to baseball teams. So this is a baseball type injury here. This isn't a normal NFL quarterback injury. So I was worried about Dak. Did that push my rankings and my projections for CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper down too much? Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Like I think I had them both closer to wide receiver 18 and 19 on the year. And now they look like they could be maybe one of the only teams that pushes for 2 top wide receiver ones in an offense. So that was a really big miss on my end. And then Aaron Jones had him everywhere. I was sitting in the 5th spot in a lot of redrafts this season. And instead of like going with someone like Saquon or Zeke, who a lot of people were pounding the table for, I took someone just as bad here in week 1 with Aaron Jones. So, but just an overall crappy game for the Packers. But those were definitely a couple of my big misses on week 1 here.
Yeah, the Packers really surprised me. I did not see the entire offense, obviously spearheaded by Rodgers, just not performing whatsoever. So I think that's also a big concern. Like there's some whispers, not that I give it much credence, that Rodgers is just like trying to stick it to Green Bay and obviously he's not doing that. No competitive football player is going to willingly like mail it in like that. But it is a concern for the offense going forward. I think week 2 is going to be a big wait and see to see if that was like an aberration or if that's the real thing. So back to you, Dave, real quick. So if not Tevin Coleman, do you trust anybody in the Jets backfield, or you're just avoiding it altogether? Like no Michael Carter, no anyone like that?
I don't want anything to do with it right now. I mean, if anybody, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Ty Johnson at this point. But that doesn't make me excited either. I don't know who's going to get the ball. Right. I mean, that's really the problem. I don't know what the usage is going to be. And Michael Carter was on the field a little more than I expected this Sunday, but didn't really pop off the screen or anything when he was. So,
right,
yeah, it's murky, and I don't want to be involved.
The other thing now concerning the New York Jets' entire backfield is we saw outstanding offensive lineman Mekhi Becton go down with that injury. It doesn't look like it's as bad as we initially thought it was, that he could still return. But, I mean, that's a bummer as a whole. Like, I have Michael Carter a lot of places. Honestly, I've been tucked away on a couple of taxi squads, on my bench in some redrafts. And if I can get one good game out of him and then sell him high, I definitely recommend that to everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that everyone was really excited about, Carter coming into the draft. Some people were even taking him over Williams at that time, and then he went to the Jets. And then, like we all know, as soon as someone goes to the Jets, they might as well be dead in terms of fantasy.
Yeah.
So I do think he still has some talent. The Ty Johnson thing is, there was some hype to him in the preseason. So I mean, it is a really difficult backfield to figure out, and I don't want any part of that. But what about Corey Davis? Did you expect Corey Davis to be as good as he was?
I was pretty big on Corey Davis, but I mean, he outdid my highest expectations this week. I definitely wanted to get my hands on him, but yeah, like 2 touchdowns, that was a lot more than I thought I was going to see out of him. I like the look of Zach Wilson throwing to Corey Davis. It looks like they've really got a connection there, and I think that could definitely pay off this year.
Now, imagine saying that sentence before week 1.
I know.
Yeah. Zach Wilson, Corey Davis is a great thing, right?
Yeah.
How quickly things change.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just like the look of them together. I felt like they had some rapport, and that's a big deal. Starting off the season with a rookie quarterback looking like he has rapport with his, top receiver. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think him being kind of like the safety valve throw for Wilson is going to, is really going to be good, especially in PPR leagues when he's going to get a lot of targets in the offense. All right, so looking ahead to week 2, week 1's behind us. We had a lot of things that we didn't expect. Trey Sermon not even playing. A lot of things that we thought we were right on, but apparently have no clue. So going forward, we're going to our Mirage section. Can we trust these players going forward, or do you think it was just a little blip in the radar? Starting with everyone's favorite, emptier of fab dollars, Elijah Mitchell. went from anywhere between 25 and 100% of people's fab budgets, which is crazy to me. I personally didn't put any money on him. But going forward, do you think that he's the real deal, or are you worried that in the Shanahan backfield it's just going to be like the hot hand, and Jermichael Hasty and Trey Sermon could upset that Mitchell train that seems to be running away with everybody?
I think a little bit, as kind of noted earlier, there is a wide range of outcomes with anyone in a Kyle Shanahan offense, especially at the running back position. Last week, Trey Sermon, up until Sunday, we thought he was the number 2 back. Turns out he was the number 4 back. They let Wayne Gallman walk a couple weeks ago. Wasn't expecting that. I wasn't even expecting Hasty to make the roster. But here we are. I mean, I think at this point, like, Mitchell was worth probably the value of the fab you picked up. Because, I mean, let's be honest, like, Raheem Mostert was a 7th, 8th round pick not too many weeks ago, and Trey Sermon was right in that range, a little bit behind him as well, probably. So is there value to be had there from guys like Hasty? Meanwhile, Hasty is available. This morning he was available in 99.5% of leagues still. So he's still out there. If you guys are listening right now, check your free agency for him. But, Dan, it's going to be a wide range of outcomes. Do I want them on my roster? Yes. Do I want to start them right now until I have a clearer picture? Probably not.
What do you think, Dave?
I think Mitchell is the real deal. I mean, the thing that really scares me, though, is kind of what you're talking about. It's Shanahan. The negatives on Mitchell have a lot more to do with Shanahan than Mitchell. But I just rewatched that game earlier today. And, I mean, he's got burst. He's quick to the hole. He's got nice speed. I feel like he's good enough that he should be the featured running back, but you know how Shanahan is really hard to predict. It's a Shanahan trait. His dad was the same way.
Yeah. I agree with both you guys. I think that talent-wise, I think he is good enough to get into that featured back role, but I just don't trust Shanahan enough to put him in that role consistently to be worth what people paying for him. I mean, not to blow your fab, but to spend that like 100% of your fab in week 1. And I get running back are scarce, and there have been a lot of injuries or stuff. But to just take yourself out of adding anyone else to the rest of the year, like that is not something that I'd be comfortable doing for someone like Mitchell, in my opinion.
I'm with you, Dan, and I'll be honest. I felt like this year compared to last year, the waiver wire crop after week 1 was just not as good. Last year, there was guys like Myles Gaskin wasn't even being picked up a lot after week 1 last year. I went hard on him after week 1. But, I mean, there was just so much good. Justin Jefferson was sitting on the waivers after week 1 last year. Robert Tonyan was still out there in the midst somewhere. Like, there were really good guys still on waivers, and I think it's just a little bit thinner this year right now. I just haven't seen those guys. Like, I was kind of like you, Dan. I honestly was a little more stingy with my fab budget. I think I got Elijah Mitchell for like maybe 17% of my fab in one league, but that was a keeper league where you generally don't drop and add a lot of players throughout the year. But yeah, I'm with you here, man. I mean, we saw a couple weeks ago with Marquez Callaway and in the Scott Fish Bowl, 2 people dropping somewhere between 66 and 100% of their fab on this guy. I mean, it's always dangerous, especially, you want these big name players on the waiver wire and the guys who have a lot of upside. But at the end of the day, I want that fab in my back pocket for when it matters down the stretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not to say that what they're thinking was wrong, obviously, because if it does end up like breaking out, then obviously it was good use of resources.
Yes.
I just worry for owners, especially like in Scott Fish Bowl, that we're spending that money on Callaway, and Callaway's the perfect story. Everyone spent 100% to 65% of their fab on him. He ended up with like 2 targets. So it's worrisome, but I mean, if it paid off, I understand the thinking. Like, it's a running back. If he ends up hitting, becomes the next, Robinson, which I hate that phrase, but then obviously it's going to work out for them.
Yeah.
So next is actually we're going to stick with running backs. Mark Ingram somehow returned from the netherworld of fantasy to have a 26 carry, 85-yard and a touchdown for the Houston Texans, who maybe aren't as bad as everyone made him out to be. Do you think that Mark Ingram, and we'll start with you, Dave, is someone that should be added going forward, or do you think that with Philip Lindsay and David Johnson there, that backfield should be don't touch that backfield?
Oh, yeah, I'm scared of that backfield too. And to be honest with you, I have teams where I have David Johnson. I have teams where I have Philip Lindsay. And in those leagues, Mark Ingram was out there on the waiver wire, and I didn't even take a stab at him. I'm just thinking that backfield's going to be difficult to predict, very much the same way that I was talking about the Jets earlier. And I'm just going to hope that the one that I have is going to, get me enough value when I need them, but I'm only going to feel comfortable playing them in like bye-week replacement situations, unless there's an injury with one of my starting backs. Otherwise, I'm staying away. When I watched the game, with Houston, Mark Ingram didn't look very efficient or effective out there. He just simply kind of compiled fantasy points because the volume was there.
Right.
So, there was nothing that I saw that made me think like, now that's a guy that's going to have a good fantasy season and I want to get him on my team.
Yeah, and Jacksonville, their opponent in week 1, like they impressed me with how bad they were, honestly. Like they made Houston look like a playoff team the way they played. I mean, that defense is just, for a week 1 defense when you have a lot of starters still on there, that was concerning if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. I mean, to answer your question here, Dan, am I adding Mark Ingram in some leagues? Sure. I mean, you can never get enough volume RBs, but am I trying to play him anytime soon? No. Like again, this is another guy I'm going to pick up if he has another big week or two, put him in a package deal, try to upgrade. Because, I mean, yes, we saw Mark Ingram, come out of the closet and just do great things that we weren't expecting. But at the same time, I mean, David Johnson, he had a solid outing because of his receiving work. Philip Lindsay, he found the end zone once again as well. Like, I don't know. It's a tough buy for this Houston Texans offense. I don't expect them to be nearly that good. I mean, man, Tyrod Taylor looked like Lamar Jackson out there, guys.
Yeah, he did. So let me ask you this question, guys. Would you want Mitchell at, say, 80% of your fab or Ingram at, say, 10%?
Gun to the head, probably Ingram just to save it. But, I mean, I still think 10% is a little much for him as well. I'm more comfortable in that 5 to 7 range, maybe.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'd probably do Ingram in that situation because then I'd still have the fab left over for somebody else. But this isn't a guy we've been talking about yet. But I put in a bunch of $0 bids for Larry Roundtree. And picked him up in a few places, which I thought was, potentially adding some running back depth to my fantasy teams. So,
Yeah,
I felt better about that than I would spending 10% of my fab on Mark Ingram.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Actually, this morning he was still on the waiver wire, Roundtree in a lot of places. So I made sure to pick him up everywhere because if for some reason, like even if Eckler doesn't get hurt, he's not the healthiest, but even if he doesn't get hurt, he seems to have like a solid role in that like rotational back. And if anything happens to Eckler, he's in the starting lineup, and that could be huge. And you're getting him for free. Like no one's picking him up. I didn't see him pick up in any of my leagues on waivers. So I mean, if you're good, that's a good pull, Dave. I like that. It's a good name. All right, switching over to quarterbacks. It was actually one of my hits, but I'd love to know you guys' opinion on Jalen Hurts. The thing with Hurts, as I mentioned before, last year was all about his completion percentage, and he showed out last week. I'll bet against an line defense that doesn't seem like they're going to be pretty good at all. To the tune of like 3 touchdowns and 280 plus yards and 60 yards rushing. Do you think that that's indicative of what he could do going forward, or are you still worried that that was just because of a bad defense, and when he faces someone good, that he's gonna basically shit the bed? We'll start with Seth.
Yeah, Dan, I will say, like, your offseason love for Jalen Hurts is justified here. Like, I mean, the upside was always there. Whenever you have a rushing quarterback in fantasy football today, it's a little bit of a cheat code. We've seen that over the last few years with guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, providing that rushing floor. We only saw him take off seven times, 62 yards. He's efficient on the ground. I'll be honest. I had the Eagles as going for the number 1 pick this year. I was stunned how good they looked. I mean, Nick Sirianni is a great head coach. Fun fact, he's actually his dad's actually a graduate of the same high school I went to in rural Pennsylvania. So a little bit of hometown love there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome little nugget.
Yeah, yes. So a little bit of love there for Nick Sirianni, but moving forward, is Jalen Hurts a QB1 for me? Absolutely. Absolutely. I still think their defense is atrocious with all the cap hits they took this offseason. So I still think that, he's going to be down a lot. But I do think we have to adjust expectations moving forward a little bit, Dan. 49ers up this week, Eagles Chiefs in 2 weeks. So Buccaneers the week after that. So definitely going to be a little bit of expectations, but I still think he's going to have enough opportunity. And overall, like, having real wide receivers now, Jalen Reagor's stepped up a little bit, and Devonta Smith, welcome to the NFL, buddy. That was awesome to see too. So I wish I had more Jalen Hurts around because he's awesome to watch. But I still think he's kind of in that, QB6 to QB10 rest of the season for me.
What about you, Dave?
Well, I had him about as a borderline quarterback one coming into the season. Obviously I like the rushing upside, so that kind of bumps him up a lot for me. But what really impressed me in this game was how well he threw the ball. I was wondering how, he would look as a passer. And I felt like he was looking to pass. He wasn't looking to run first.
Yes.
He was really going through his progressions, trying to get the ball down the field. And what Seth just said about the receivers stepping up, Jalen Reagor looked better than I saw him look last year. And Devontae Smith, he made it look like that, high draft capital was well spent.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with the way that the Eagles as a team passed the ball. But yeah, Hurts, there's no way that you can't consider him a quarterback one at this point, if he's going to throw like that. And I liked Seth's little mention that he's very efficient when he does run the ball, which, it's true. He gets his yards and gets it done, but he's not just, I don't know. He's not a run first quarterback. That's what I'm trying to say, and I really like that about the game I saw on Sunday.
Yeah, he reminds me of Russell Wilson, that he's not going to take like that huge hit. He'll get the yards he needs to get or can get, and then he goes out of bounds or falls down. That throw, honestly, that touchdown throw to Devonta, I didn't think he could make that.
I didn't think so either.
Because he that was a better throw than any quarterback for the Eagles made last year. Like
100%.
Oh yeah.
So that was a little. I didn't expect that. Like I expected him to be like okay, but that throw and the touchdown throw to Goddard where he fit in between like the.
Oh, that was a right goal. That
was like what I even like commented about it. I think on Twitter. It was like, oh my god, I thought that was picked at first. So those two things, and obviously I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm obviously going to pump up Hurts. But realistically, I think that 6 to 10 range. Going forward stuff, we do have a tough schedule coming up with a lot of games, but it could also help because a lot of the, like in the Chiefs game and even the Dallas game, I think they're gonna, it's gonna be high scoring for them because I don't think our defense is that good. So it's gonna be a lot of garbage time points that hopefully we can accumulate. So and those do count, as we all know, in fantasy as well.
Yes.
All right, so a couple more, and then we can get going. So Van Jefferson. It's a name that a lot of people haven't, talked about a lot from the Rams. Everyone, the Rams drafted Tutu and pretty much left Van Jefferson for dead, even though he had pretty high draft capital coming last year. Didn't have a bunch of targets, but he did have a very long touchdown. With the way that Stafford is spreading the ball around in LA, is he someone worth picking up? Let's go to you, Dave, first.
I'm comfortable giving him a shot. I like what I saw from Matt Stafford throwing the ball all over the yard on Sunday night. I think he's exactly what the Rams hoped he would be. He's just came in and made that offense look like one of the more potent passing offenses in the league. I'd like to see more volume from Van Jefferson, obviously. It'd be nicer if he had a few more targets, but he made a good catch on that touchdown that you were just talking about. And I mean, his hands looked pretty solid. I would imagine that if what we saw Sunday is indicative of what their offense is going to do going forward, that, yeah, there's a chance that you're going to get value out of 3 wide receivers in that offense. I mean, we all know that Kupp and Woods are going to get theirs, but I would definitely say there's a possibility for some life from Van Jefferson. If you need some wide receiver depth, you could do a lot worse.
He's a tough one, man. He is a tough one because, Dave, you make a great point that we've seen 3 wide receivers be valuable for the Rams down the stretch before a couple of years ago. 2018, 2019 comes to mind with Brandon Cooks there as the wide receiver 3. But we look back year after year and we see some of this turnover with guys in week 1 who have super low draft capital who go off. I can remember maybe 5, 6, 8 years ago, like Jalen Hurts was really big. Jalen Hurts, I think, was really big in week 1, week 2. So like you're always going to see these guys. Hollywood Brown, his rookie year, studded it up in week 1. So I don't know. Unless I'm in like a 16-teamer league, I'm probably going to like it's only 3 targets. That's my issue a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think if anyone's the big winner here outside of Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods with the emergence of Matthew Stafford, I think it's Tyler Higbee, man. I mean, without Gerald Everett on the field, he was featured in a lot more passes. So I'm going to I still think there is a chance. There's definitely a chance. Like Jen just talked about him last night on our podcast. There's definitely a chance. And the price is nothing right now. You pay no fab. You pay no waiver priority. But I'm still probably I'm going to wait another week, I think, before I'm willing to commit anything to him, especially a roster spot at this point in the season when they're so valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good move. I think that we need to see a little more consistent workload from him. Obviously, he has the talent to give you that production, but with the 2 guys in front of him, I need to see it 1 or 2 more weeks before I decide to as you say, bring a bench spot that's highly valuable right now and have him use it. Do you think that the Robert Woods fear is overblown that because Cooper Kupp had such a good game and Woods didn't, even with the touchdown? Do you think that it's going to even out eventually on the target share, or do you think that Kupp is going to be Stafford's guy and Woods is going to go into that 1B passenger seat?
I'm not overreacting if I'm a Robert Woods fantasy manager, honestly. The guy's talented. He's going to get some rushing volume each and every week as well. So, I mean, I'm holding tight. Did Cooper Kupp have a great game? Yes, but let's not forget one of those touchdowns for Cooper Kupp, he was wide open, busted coverage, no one within 15 yards of him. So I'm holding tight if I'm a Robert Woods owner. Greener days ahead.
Didn't you hear about the breakfast thing that Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford have been eating breakfast together? Got a connection?
Yeah, I heard that. That's obviously what it is. Once you start having breakfast with people, obviously you got to bump up the rankings. Yes. That's what I didn't consider when I made up my rankings this week. Who has breakfast with who? Right. I got to put that into my process next week.
You can end up at casual lunches with people that you're not necessarily, friends with, but you only take friends to breakfast.
Right. Yeah. Breakfast is a much more intimate thing. I think that's only for the people you actually like.
Yeah.
Last but not least, someone we all have near and dear to our hearts, Cole Kmet, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 40 yards. Is this someone that we can maybe depend on? A lot of people were worried that Jimmy Graham was going to steal all his thunder, but he seemed to have a solid game. With Dalton and eventually when Fields starts, are we back on the Cole Kmet bandwagon? Seth?
Man, so Dan, I have the most love-hate relationship with Cole Kmet. I said F Cole Kmet on a live stream, holiday live stream, couple months ago. I think about 8-9 months ago at this point. Ended up having to play him that week, and Scott Fishbowl lost my ticket to the championship because of him and the likes of Josh Jacobs. So I have a very love-hate relationship with him. But that all said, there is some value, I think. But am I going to the waivers and the free agency and after him? No, not really. Yes, 74% of the snaps was great to see. And it looks like Jimmy Graham's really going to be the red zone target. We saw him really featured in the red zone here on Sunday night. But without the red zone upside and with them targeting guys like Jimmy Graham, Allen Robinson, who's been great there the last couple of years, I don't know. Like, he's okay. I think I had him maybe projected as like tight end 2021 coming into the season. Does that move up a little bit? Sure. Maybe he's, a higher end tight end too. But for me right now, until I know what's going on at quarterback, I'm a little hesitant to really throw anyone out there outside of Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney in this passing game.
All right. What do you think, Dave?
Man, I want to be excited about Cole Kmet. I want to be, but tight end is such a tough position. Once you get past the top few, I mean, this is what we always say. But I think there are guys out there that I'm probably happier taking a stab at right now than Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
But I will say, I may be a little gaga for Justin Fields, but I will say if he becomes the starting quarterback, I think my interest in all the passing options in Chicago goes up a little, Yeah. I just think that guy's got it, and I definitely don't think Andy Dalton has any more it. I feel like whatever he has
all out of it.
Revenge game for him this weekend. Revenge game for the Red Rifle. Bengals come to town, so we'll see what he has left in the tank. I think that'll be a good test for him.
Yeah,
absolutely. So real quick, who would you take in going forward? Would you take Kmet or someone like Mike Gesicki, who didn't have any kind of game last week?
It's hard to be excited about Gesicki right now after that week one stinker.
I'll go Gesicki. I think he's a little more talented of a player. I am worried now a little bit because we do have 3 pretty good passing options for the young Tua Tagovailoa there in Miami. But I think Gesicki's he has the touchdown upside. We've seen him score a lot more touchdowns in the last couple of years than Cole Kmet. So, I mean, I'm not thrilled to have either one, but if I have to choose, it's definitely Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, I'm not terribly excited about either of those guys either, but I'm going to go the opposite way. I would go with Cole Kmet.
Okay.
Especially with Will Fuller coming back from the suspension right now.
Yep.
That just – and Gesicki didn't do much with it without Will Fuller on the field. I just feel like that reduces his likelihood of being what we hoped for Gesicki anyway. And, yeah, I like the involvement from Cole Kmet in week one. And like I said, at some point, you got to believe they're making the switch to Justin Fields. That's going to make me like him even more. So for those reasons, I'd pick Kmet.
Yeah, I think I agree with you more, Dave. I think that I had a lot of Gesicki rostered before the season. I was really high on him. And the fact that he got absolutely nothing, I mean, I may be tilting a little bit, full disclosure, but I think that, I agree with when Fields gets the job. I think that all the offense is going to look better, and the fact that Kmet was on the field for a ton of snaps and he got some decent target share. That's someone that I probably give Gesicki one more week just to see how he fares. But with, like you said, with Fuller coming back, there's going to be less and less opportunity for him to make an impression. So I'll stick at Gesicki for now, but don't be surprised if I probably go Kmet next week.
Last thing I'll say on this is Mike Gesicki has been a long time known fantasy commodity who catches on later in the season. I didn't target him a lot in drafts specifically because of that. I mean, last season he was a strong tight end one down the stretch. Got a lot of people into championships. Won a couple people some championships. So, I know.
Is that what you're saying? Patience.
It's hard with those tight ends because I was all in on Austin Hooper as well as a sleeper, and I have him all over the place. And I'm looking at some redrafts. It's hard to hold a tight end, a second tight end in a roster spot, especially in redraft leagues. But if I could advise a little bit of patience for fantasy owners, be patient. It's only week one.
Patience is no fun. It's week one. We want to overreact. That's over here telling us to be.
All right, that's in the game. Everyone has a swing 180 the opposite way to everything they said that they were wrong about. So Seth, would you take Kmet or Jawan Johnson?
Man, that's a great one, Dan. I would think if I'm in a basic redraft PPR league, probably Kmet for that PPR value. Especially tight end premium, probably even a little more. But I mean, Jawan Johnson though, it's interesting. I'm a big Adam Troutman guy too, though, so I'm mixed on Johnson. But I mean, we saw it all in preseason. We saw it again here in week one, 2 touchdowns. some nice plays from the young man in the end zone. So there could be something with Juwan Johnson. I just need to see more volume.
That's fair. What about you, Dave? Would you take Gesicki or Johnson for you?
It feels exciting to be in on Johnson right now.
It does,
He did display some pretty good hands. I was impressed with how well he catches the ball. I might be willing to do it. Like I say, I mean, Gesicki, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just really kind of tilted from week one, like you said, but he's not going to. I just feel like he's not going to get more involved. When they have more receiving options. So
right. Agreed.
Maybe I'm going to be wrong on this, and Seth's going to say, "I told you to be patient."
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably go with Johnson, even if he doesn't get that kind of target share. The fact that they look at him in the red zone as much as they do. I mean, we all know once you get past the first 4 tight ends, any tight end that scores is going to be worth picking up. So if they continue the rest, even if Troutman is the starter, but they give the red zone looks to Johnson, I'm going to prefer Johnson over Troutman there.
Agreed.
A lot of times you'll hear people say, talk about it. Well, he's a touchdown dependent tight end, and it's like,
right.
I mean, let's face it. If you're not, Kittle, Kelsey, Waller, maybe even Logan Thomas, he gets a lot of targets. But if you're not one of those 4, you are a touchdown dependent tight end. Exactly. That's kind of what playing tight end is all about. I mean, You're not going to be that heavily targeted.
Exactly. Every tight end after tight end number 4 is TD dependent.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, guys, that'll wrap up the show for today. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we go out, let's tell everyone where they can find you. Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at Dave Fantasy on Twitter. I link all my articles that I'm writing there. Writing a column every other week for IBT Media. So absolutely look for me there. That's somewhere you'll always find me. And then, like I say, just find me on Twitter because you'll find everything that I do there.
Awesome. What about you, Seth?
I will first add, Dave is being very bashful. Great, awesome contributor to our team. Everything he does, he did rankings and projections for us. Busted those out this summer. So thankful to have Dave as a member of our team at In Between Media. But guys, you can follow me on the Twitter bird at @between_SethFF. We're over here In Between Media. We're a little bit different than a lot of fantasy football sites. We combine feel-good lifestyle advice with our fantasy sports advice as well. Whether you're into fantasy football, fantasy NASCAR, fantasy golf, even a little bit of fantasy fighting we got over there for you as well. We got columns coming out Monday through Saturday. We have YouTube series coming out. We have a podcast every week. So make sure you guys check that out. It's inbetweenmedia.com. We got a bunch of good stuff coming for you this season. Hopefully we can get Dan back on the podcast sometime as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a great time. Yeah. If you're not following all those guys over at IBT, definitely check them out. They're awesome. The fancy guide they put out was great reading. They're always, they're great people in general. They're really accessible. If you have a question or anything, they're more than willing to help out. So a great group of people over there. And we're really excited to see what you guys do in the future. You can find me over at Twitter at EagleDanFF. I'm over here at Champions Round doing article every week, one for waivers and one for a weekly preview on Fridays, and also this podcast. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll be sure to catch you next time.